home. First of all, I just want to say thank you for everybody that's able to join me today and you actually decided to attend the student finance session. Anybody read the BBC article this morning? £231,000, the highest level of debt. I'm going to address that as I go through my presentation when I talk about student finance. And we'll talk around the facts around that article and the actual figures that actually relate to the truth behind it. But what we're going to do today is, because we are joined by teachers, career advisors, and other staff that support students who progress on to university, the contents of the presentation that we will be looking at are based on information that you need to know for when you are supporting lower 6 year 12s, year 11s, year 13s currently. How many of you in your schools and colleges have already started to see your students apply for student finance? Because it opened on the 11th of March. Then there was a glitch at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the 11th of March, which was out of SLC's hands, and the system crashed. I would like to think that's just because there were hundreds of thousands of people doing a student finance application on day one, but it wasn't the case. But it is now live, 2 weeks into the student finance application, and I can tell you that the Midlands were in the east at the moment. I was in Scotland until yesterday evening. I was looking at real-life data as the students completed the student finance application. The West Midlands and the East Midlands combined, we have had 9,438 applications already submitted in just 7 days, which is absolutely brilliant for the West Midlands as a whole. So well done for you and your students. So what we're going to look at, what we're going to concentrate on, are key areas of student finance that you need to know about as it currently stands for the academic year start of 24-25. And there are areas of student finance that I always like to cover off. And the reason why I say that is because as the regional manager for student finance for West Midlands, East Midlands, and everywhere else that wants to I am constantly bombarded with emails and phone calls on certain areas of eligibility. I have a student who has presented X, I have a student who has presented Y. I'm not sure if they're eligible. And it gets kind of complicated in the world of student finance because our regulations do align very closely with the Home Office regulations, but our own Student Support Regulations Act of 2011, as was amended in 2016, has its own criteria, thank you very much, under which students have to meet certain eligibility criteria. So we'll look at some of the general eligibility reminders, we'll look at some of the new figures and enhancements to DSA as well, and what else is happening in the world of student finance for 24-25. And then we are going to touch very briefly on the future of higher education funding. I'm sure if you keep up to date with what's going on in the world of higher education, you'll be very familiar with the terminology of lifelong learning entitlement and what that means for your lower 6 at the moment and how it's likely to impact the 25 and 26 as we move forward. So without further ado, we'll just move into some of the more interesting topics that we are constantly bombarded with. And I want to start with the very top one. Students who wish to progress to university, higher education colleges, and draw down public first money, i.e. SLC money, you have to have what's known as a settled status in the United Kingdom without any limitation of time to remain in the United Kingdom. You can't have any restrictions for being in the United Kingdom and then expect to apply for student finance, because you're likely to be made ineligible because of certain regulation criteria. So that's quite important to start with. You have to have been resident in England 3 years backwards from the first academic year course. So if you have a cohort start of September academic year, let's just use that as an example, a lot of universities have January and May intake as well. You have to have been resident in England on the 1st of September backwards 3 years to be resident. And I have dealt with cases from a college in the Midlands where a student missed it by 1 day. They were resident on the 2nd of September backwards, which meant they had to wait a whole year before university. It seems a little bit harsh, I know, but I don't make the rules, I apply them. So there are certain categories that have to be put in place, certain criteria that people need to meet. Anybody not familiar with Brexit? Please tell me. We all know what took place on that referendum in 2016, the end of the transition period at the 31st of December 2020. From January 2021, the rules for European Union and European Economic Area students changed drastically, whereby now they are given or were given pre-settled status or a settled status to be eligible. And again, that meets certain criteria. And then you have other areas of humanitarian protection, refugee status, asylum seekers, states, individuals, etc. And we'll look at that. But just for ease, I put it into a table for you. And I'll come to what the two green boxes mean. So if you look at the residency category on the left-hand side or on the right, depending on where you are on the route, you will see this refers to what we class as ROW, rest of the world category, as a general high-level eligibility criteria. So it's not necessarily UK and EU, this is outside of that. So where somebody falls into one of those categories, the middle identifies how long they must have been living and lawfully residing in the UK to be able to meet our regulations and our stipulations for entitlement. On the right-hand side, ordinary resident on. You'll see two categories say first day, the first academic course. There has been a policy enhancement this year, in the middle of an academic year, by government to say that where somebody receives refugee status, humanitarian protection, indefinite leave to remain as part of domestic violence, which is a new policy enhancement in 2021, indefinite leave to remain as a bereaved partner, along with 2021 that came along with the domestic violence and bereaved partner together. And the other ones, the stateless individuals, Article 67, Arab, ACAs, and the Ukraine scheme, we're all familiar with the Ukraine scheme on the conflict in there. The green has been highlighted now that as long as they have been in the country from the course start date at university or higher education college, they're eligible. So first of September will close out the window. And we know that because there have been some people, like the case I dealt with the one day, who missed it by a 24-hour period. This has now been enhanced to say that if a university course starts on the 5th of October and they were in the country on the 28th of September, backwards 3 years, they're eligible. If they were on the 4th of October and the course started is the 5th of October and they moved backwards 3 years, they're eligible now for student funding. So that is now being enhanced to say what is the stipulated course start date by the university. Tell us that, not the 1st of September backwards, as is the rules for us for student finance. And what makes this interesting is that in the world of student finance is dominated by geopolitics, believe it or not. If something happens 4,000 miles away, 3,000 miles away, 2,000 miles away, we receive an immediate instruction from the Department for Education saying this has happened. And in order to prepare for an influx of nationalities coming to the UK who might need to go to university, to college, to school, we have to amend our regulations pretty much overnight. And that's exactly what happened in February 2022 when the Ukrainian conflict started. Very quickly, overnight, we had to make amendments to the policy to allow for Ukrainian nationals to be able to draw down public purse money. So in our world, it is very fluid. It moves very quickly. And for my choice, I have to read 138 pages of policy pretty much every 2 or 3 weeks because there's always something going in there as known as a CR, a change request, something that is actually enhanced. I need to know what it is, so I pass the information on to universities, schools, colleges, and careers advisors as we go through. By the way, if you have any questions on anything I'm going on about, just happily just chip in and ask away. You don't need to wait till the end of the session, okay? But if you want to wait till the end, then that's absolutely fine. This is what 24-25 looks like in terms of the support for universities, students going off to university in maintenance loan. Now, we've heard a lot already today. We know the article. Professor Ehsan referred to it as well. 231,000, the cost of higher education. There was a show, not a show really, a BBC documentary a few weeks ago on BBC Two, the true cost of higher education. You know what I'm referring to. And it makes for interesting watching. And over the last couple of years, higher education has taken action. It does. Always does in the media, in social media, in the press. And it certainly will be politicized in the next 4 months. Why do you think it will be politicized in the next 4 months? Election. You have a dedicated voter body of 1.6 million students, undergraduate, part-time, and full-time, who you appeal to by making false promises on the elected in 2010 by abolishing tuition fees. Never happened. I'll tell you why it will never happen, because we pay the university sector £22 billion a year. If universities didn't get £22 billion a year from us every year, how would we be sitting in this fancy building right now? Again, we've heard of making education free for all. I'm a generation where I went to university in the first year where there were no tuition fees and there were no maintenance loans. That's how old I am. And then the following year, the introduction of £1,100 tuition fees came about. And that's great. Before that, education is free. But you had to see the state of the buildings you were taught in, halls of residences and everything else, and limited resources you had. So the money over the last 30 years has allowed for what you see around you now. So will tuition fees ever be abolished? In my opinion, no. Will they ever go down? Again, just my humble opinion, no chance. Is it likely that they could rise? Possibly. But right now, tuition fees have been capped for the last 7 years at 9,250. I appreciate economists will argue, and certainly Martin Lewis will, that in real terms, that sits at 6,500 against 9,250. We know there's a shortfall in what it costs to teach an individual at university against what tuition fee buys that individual. Fully aware of that. And if you want to play devil's advocate, you could do that all day long. There are pros and cons to having a tuition fee in place. We're all aware of what that is. The maintenance loan, as it goes, which goes directly to the students, the cap for this was only increased by 2.4% this year. Last year, dialogue that we undertook with the Department for Education and ministers at SLC were that they are looking at potentially maintenance loan increases by 8%, which have never ever been heard of. It's always only ever gone up in line with inflation around 2.8, 2.9%, 2.5%. And the government said we would look into a potentially 6 to 8% increase when inflation in the country was at 12.4%. So when they released this and said the increase is actually on 2.4%, we did go back to government and ask the question you were talking about, 6 to 8% increase. And I'm not going to name names, but what happened was the response we got, inflation is now at 3.5%. Why should we increase it by 8%? The talk of 8% was when inflation was at 12.4%. Inflation, believed to be at 3.4%, is now there. Therefore, the increase in maintenance loans for students to be at university will only be at 2.4%. That was the rationale behind it. We were disappointed. We were hoping for a much larger increase. Anyway, so the green identifies the maximum per year that students can apply for. Lower than £25,000 household income, they get the maximum amount of maintenance loan. And then between £25,000 and £42,375, we would choose £1 of maintenance loan for every £6.78 of income. There is no household income contribution assessment until the household income contribution reaches £42,375, contrary to what Martin Lewis tells you on TV and show. I'd just want to get that in there. So between £42,375 and £62,378, the student loses £1 of maintenance loan for £7.68 of income during household income. Now, the assessment and the non-income assessment, what I have seen in my region, and that combines the East and the West Midlands together, is that more and more parents are refusing to provide household income to support the young person, and that the odds are telling me that that's true. To say, I refuse to give my household income because I can't afford to support my young person when they go to university. So we get these emails, we get these phone calls, what can we do at SLC about it? And with the best will in the world, if it was up to me, I would open the purse strings and give everyone the maximum amount of needs and so on, without getting higher education per se. However, we have to follow the policy that applies. And in order for us to establish whether the student is entitled to more maintenance loan, we need the household income. Therefore, it becomes a bigger dialogue among schools, colleges, careers advisors, tutors, pastoral workers, heads to say, understanding, and parents and caregivers understanding fully the reasons why we have to do an income assessment is to ensure that the young person's not missing out on potentially the maximum or as near to the maximum as possible for student finance when they go to university. We're aware of the cost of higher education. We know that universities are increasing boards of residence charges, etc., and that inflation is crazy and cost of living is absolutely crazy at the moment. But we can't get involved with families to say why they must give it. It's more about the articulation of the message. Why is it important to give household income? And for 24-25, moving forward, unlike previous years where we ask for P60s, bank statements, and everything else, we don't no longer ask for it. So when a student completes their student finance application form and puts the sponsor income there, we write to them, we now verify the income purely through national insurance. That's it. Self-employed and employed people. So the parental or the household income is now verified through national insurance. We're not asking for any paper trails whatsoever. So it speeds up the process. So we can verify that with HMRC based on the records that the HMRC. So again, making things a little bit more seamless for students. But the problem persists. And so I did a little bit of digging around this to try and understand why. And the increase in parents refusing to provide household incomes post-pandemic for some reason. After 2020, there's been a huge increase in parents saying, I don't wish to. I don't know what's taking place. We know there's an increase in furlough and part-time people becoming redundant. They're not willing to give more personal information. So it makes for interesting listening when you do get this information coming from them. Again, we saw the uplift on the supplementary support grants for childcare grant, parent learning allowance, and we saw the additional for adult dependent grants. They always go up again in line with inflation around that 2.5%. So again, perfect information to be able to articulate and pass on, especially for your more mature learners, to say these are the additional sources of income if you qualify for it, household income, how you'll be able to draw down all of this, and how you would apply for it. And again, it's all part of one application form now. There are not multiple applications that anybody needs to do as part of disability support and tuition maintenance and all these additional supplementary grants. It's all part of the one online PN1 application that generates based on the evidence that is provided to us. The disability support allowance for 24-25 just shy of £27,000 a year. I have worked as a careers advisor. I've worked supporting students with UCAS. And I used to have students that did and sometimes didn't declare on that tick box, I have a disability on the UCAS. If they're willing to share their data and consent to share on our student finance application form, we ask this very same question, do you have a disability? If they do, we take them through a process of assessing them for qualifying if they meet the requirements of the DSA process. Now, the interesting thing here was that last year, very early last year, Law Holmes conducted a research amongst higher education undergraduate students within the universities in England that identified only 29% of people drew down DSA support from the student loans company. 29% of students of a total 500 million undergraduate body drawing down DSA support. These are students that are missing out on 20, as it was, £26,000 of allowance to help them lower the barriers in higher education during their education journey. SLC has the data on the number of students that actually draw down DSA who are undergraduate first year students. It's actually 51%. I'm not sure which one I came from, but there's a 22% disparity between the two. It's 51%, so it's still not where we would like it to be, close to 80 to 85%, but it's at 51%. But nonetheless, the information around DSA and the support needs, the support with young people and mature learners to be able to identify and voluntarily declare to us that they have a disability, whatever that might be, and then allowing us to start the process with them to be able to then say you do or don't qualify for DSA support. We ran a webinar about 4 weeks ago. There has been a massive change to DSA processes, i.e. who in the country are the service providers for DSA delivery for all students that declare a disability. All of the contractors that had it up until this year, the contracts were cancelled by us and the DFE. There were reasons behind it. I'm not going to go into what those reasons were, but they made for interesting reading as to some of the providers anyway. It was put out to tender, and we have now allocated only 2 organisations for it. Habitat, everybody's heard of Capital Government Organisation, and StudyTech. The East Midlands is under Capita. So it will now only be 2 organisations that will deliver DSA delivery. We will still do the application. We will still do the assessment. We will still provide the allowance of £27,000. But the organisations that will now support the students who qualify for DSA will be limited to 2, and depending on the geographical location that they're in. What this means, yes,
Is that the university they're in where they live currently?
it will be in the geographical university location that they go to. So what this means for the student, as it says on the screens in front of you, is that there will be a dedicated organisation and a dedicated person within either capital studies that becomes a key support worker for that student for the duration of their higher education studies So there's no more faffing around by students going onto the gov.uk website and looking for 20 different providers for either an IT setup, non-medical help, training, whatever it might be. It will be one organisation and one person that they will liaise with for the duration of their study. And that is for all new students, 24, 25. Current students will be in universities, will continue to grow on the current programme that's in place for 23, 24. So again, another change to how we are working with the sector, responding to reports and responding to the education sector, responding to schools and colleges that identify students need additional. And I think everybody does an infographic, so I'll throw an infographic in there for you as well, in terms of what the journey would look like for a student doing all this. If you want to take any selfies of me, feel free to do so as well. I do like a selfie. No, the slides will be made available to you all. Don't worry about that. So it explains the journey. And again, some of the things that we've been doing over the last 2 or 3 years has been to try and enhance the student experience journey, not only with redesigning the application form, redesigning supplementary grants, or additional support that we put in place for students. But again, it's all about the end journey. It's all about the experience that students have for moving on to university. Another area that I'm constantly asked about is what is the household income? Students are concerned about whose household income that they need to provide. And again, post-pandemic, what I've seen a rise in Midlands, because I get the data from Leicester and the DFE, is because there was an increase in divorce and separation during the 2 years lockdown, students often come to careers advisors and personal tutors and say, but whose income am I supposed to declare? I'm not sure, because my parents don't live together anymore. And I have to be extremely careful, because obviously they're on teams as well right now. I don't want to be bullying and who's not. And you can talk to me afterwards, I'll give you an official answer. But when we speak to students, the regulation says, who do you ordinarily spend most of your time with? That's all we ask. We don't ask for anything further from a student. Sometimes you're in the classroom or an assembly and students say, not quite getting what you're saying, and you walk up to them and go, who do you ordinarily spend most of your time? And your eyes are like giving you the answer here. Sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't get it. I'll put it signed off with the real answer. But yeah, so from us, it's where the student declares that they spend most of the time. So if it's with mom, it's mother's income. If it's with dad, it's dad's income. If it's parents and cohabiting partner, it's both. And again, we get asked this question at the point of separation because we work on a previous tax year. It was one parent, there is now a cohabiting partner, well, that's fine. The cohabiting partner's income becomes part of the household income when you're in year 2, not as long as year 1, because based on the previous tax year, in year 1, so that's absolutely fine. But again, I've put that there for you to have a look and to be able to pass this information on. But household income is extremely important to us. We're not being nosy, it's about making sure that if somebody's entitled to the maximum maintenance loan, that they're getting the maximum maintenance loan for when they start at university. Here's an interesting thing, and there's a reason why I've highlighted the last 3 bullet points down there for you. And again, you'll again refer to the pandemic, unfortunately, those 2 years of lockdown. Before the lockdown, the 3 that I've highlighted there for you, the number 1 reason for students declaring independent status, and if you declare independent status, you get the maximum maximum maintenance loan. There is no household income assessment done for you. It was always I'm a care leaver, care experience. I've had care experience in the care of local authority. I've got evidence to support that, and that was absolutely fine. Post-pandemic, that was no longer number 1. Guess what number 1 was? Post-pandemic. Estrangement. Relationships have broken down because of those 2 years of lockdown. The rise in divorces, the rise in separations. So the way it moved for us at SLC and what we started to receive was, and again, the East Midlands has seen the highest rates between the 2 Midlands of estrangement declarations for students progressing to university. Yeah.
Have you evidenced estrangement?
So we have a team at head office called the Micro-Statutory Data Analysis Unit, the MDT. Really long team. And what we do is if somebody declares independent on the student finance application form that says, are you under 25? Parental income, if you're over 25, you're independent. So if it's an independent box, they're under 25. We also ask for estrangement declaration form to be filled in. So that estrangement declaration form is then allocated to the actual student finance core application. That is our marker to indicate if somebody's estranged. By estrangement, we mean that they've had no financial support, moral support, emotional support, Regulations by the DfE state for at least 12 months. We're a little bit kinder at SLC, so we will be happy to accept about 4 months and a supporting statement from a career advisor or a safeguarding officer to say that I'm aware that relationship is broken down and that's how we measure it.
Sorry, I think I can't start to answer the question. So, you know, if they complete the strength and technological form, I'm just curious what kind of evidence needs to be provided.
Right.
I mean, obvious ones I can think of would be a social work lecturer or something.
You're absolutely correct. So if they've spoken to a career advisor, a teacher, or a safeguarding lead at an institution, a school or a college, and something has been documented, the student themselves fills in the Australian declaration form with as much evidence as possible. There is a supporting statement that's attached to that if there is anything on record. If there is nothing on record, the Australian declaration form is submitted to us at the same time as the PM1 online application form. The Australian declaration form can be drawn down and developed website the same as the PM1 application. If there is no evidence to submit, what happens to the PM1 application and the Australian declaration form, it goes to a dedicated team of assessors that are known as estrangement assessors at SLC. And what they will then do is they will contact the student and start a relationship with them over 2-3 years, initially through telephone conversation, to establish what it is that they've paid on that form and why the estrangement has been.
Only if they haven't got a letter from the teacher, tutor, social worker.
Correct, where there is no evidence, correct. But if there is evidence, and we and our estrangement assessors or our independent team of assessors are happy with what they're reading and seeing, the student can be declared independent for the duration of their higher education studies. Or in some cases, we don't declare them for full 3 or 4 years. We do it on a year-by-year basis to see if their personal circumstances change, and that they do return to their family, and there's emotional support, financial support, and any other type of support that they can get. So there is a rigorous procedure in place to support people, but equally to verify that they qualify for independent status. And yeah.
So if you're under 25,
Yeah.
you can declare yourself as financially independent.
No, well, you can if you meet some of these criteria.
If you
Yes.
meet the criteria. And if you're over 25,
You're automatically independent.
So if you're over 25, your household income isn't considered.
Correct. So if you are over 25, your assessment is based on you. If I were 25, I'm not far from it. If I were 25 and off to university in September, it would be based on me. But if I have a cohabiting partner, it's my zero income, but my partner's income. Because they're the household income, they're living with me. So if anybody has that situation, kick them out now before you start. But the point is, if I'm alone and I do a lot of talks of access to HE students, and I did a country college review. So what happens is that if you're an access student, and let's just argue say a single parent, but you don't have a cohabiting partner, you are a zero income assessed student for us. Even if you're working full-time or part-time and still studying, but because you're the full-time student going to university, you're a zero assessment for income, and therefore you're getting the maximum maintenance loan and any of the supplementary grants if you have young children of that age. But if you have somebody living with you, that's a cohabiting partner, you have a husband or a wife, that's the household income for you, even though you're 25 and over. The 25 doesn't actually come from SLC, it comes from the government. The government stipulates that until you're 25, you're still financially dependent on your parents to do initiation, which is a crazy age. But nonetheless, that's the government for you, big brother being big brother. So yes, there are independent categories that you can meet, but you don't have to just have that sort of criteria. You can have care of a young person. You could be in a marriage, separated, civil partnership, and yourself being experienced of care. That qualifies you as independent category of status as well.
So if you're considered independent and you're estranged from your parents, but you live with another family member, can you still do that?
If you're estranged and you live with another family member, if there is no SGO in place, if there's no cause of order, there are legal guardians, it's based on you, and if you get classified as independent, it's based on you surrender to who you live with. But if that family takes you on and adopts you, or have an SGO or legal order in place, that is income, we can't actually be independent because there is legal guardianship in place. Yeah. Okay, no worries. So yeah, there are lots of scenarios, and these aren't exhaustive. There are other areas of why we might make somebody independent. In fact, I've dealt with 2 cases in my 8 years at SLC, whereby parents have been overseas armed forces personnel serving in a country that we can't, well, we know where they are, but we can't ask for income because that risks the life of those parents. So we automatically assess that individual going to university as independent, because it would be stupid to ask somebody who's in a secret country where there should be a war going on, but they're there fighting. I'm saying you go to your local post office and just send 60 million files. Doesn't work that way. So we can classify them as independent. That's one of those circumstances. So, just to give you a reminder, I'm hoping that you're all aware that the new plan that exists for students from 23-24 is known as Plan 5. Plan 2 ceased in 22-23. So everyone that started university in 23-24 in the current academic year are under Plan 5, working exactly the same way as previously Plan 2 did for so many years. Although the threshold is low. The threshold for those graduates who come out of university under Plan 5, currently £25,000, it will rise in line with inflation in 2027. And it will continue to rise in line with inflation every year. Still, the 9% of gross income between the threshold and what your income is. Still, the write-off period, the only thing is the write-off period is now 40 years as opposed to 30. And again, it makes for interesting reading as to why the government increases to 40. But I am live streaming, so I'm not going to tell you that. So, yeah, a lot of changes that have happened in higher education reform. It makes for interesting reading if you want to have a look at the consultation and blog around that, please do do so. Just to touch upon the Ukraine scheme. Oh, sorry, my apologies. We know that the Ukraine scheme came into place following the Ukraine conflict in February 2022. It was introduced in March of that year. It was initially set up for a 3-year period. The Ukraine scheme comes to an end on the 1st of March 2025. That will be it. And as at the moment, as we know that Ukrainians are not part of the EU and EEA, so what the government has decided to do is scrap the Ukraine scheme, as it was known, the Family Extension Sponsorship Scheme, comes to an end on the 1st of March 2025, but they are putting in place something known as the Ukrainian Commission Extension Scheme that will afford a further 18 months to any Ukrainians in the United Kingdom in education. But the visa will be 18 months from the 1st of March onwards, not for 3 years as currently being given when they fled the conflict. What the government has decided to do is bring the policy in line with the other rest of the world nationals to say that if you are here and can maintain a lawful residence in the United Kingdom, we're abolishing the 3 years that we gave you. You will fall in line with all other policy of rest of the world nationals who also, when they arrive on a 3-year visa, every 18 months, have to extend that visa and meet lawful residency criteria. Now, I appreciate there are thousands of students in higher education at the moment who the DFE have told us they will write to them to tell them that there's a change coming to the Ukrainian scheme, which they should go back, because obviously they're in that scheme, and that the scheme will afford them a further 18 months. If they're in higher education or further education, they will continue to be extended for the other 18 months, total 3 years if they go into education, as long as they continue to meet the requirements of their official stay in the United Kingdom. And that's the extension that will be happening. But I have put the link in there for you at the very bottom. So if you want to, over a glass of Prosecco or red wine, while I might have to fall asleep, be my guest and have a look at that blog that the government have put out there for you to have a look at. That leads me very nicely into the last 12 minutes of being able to talk to you about the changes to higher education funding from 25-26. So one of the parting gifts that Boris Johnson gave us all when he was forced out of number 10 was the lifelong learning entitlement. So what is this? I'll go through it in a minute, but basically the premise to this was 3 years ago, the introduction of higher education short courses. So the higher education short courses were introduced, and a bid was put out by the OFS to 21 universities who won £21 million for a trial to see if there was appetite for short modular-based courses. Should we run them? Should we not? How many universities will win bids? Who will work with FE coaches to run these short courses? Over 3 years, there's only been 115 students. Let me say that again. 115 students in the whole country. So in my opinion, and again, it's just a humble opinion, if that was the premise of the lifelong learning entitlement, writing on the wall. The LLE is coming about. It will be introduced in 25-26. The DFE are still finalizing certain details for it. What does the LLE mean? Higher education funding, as we have known it for the last 30 years, because so was I am, and if you remember back to when it started, it will cease. It will no longer be. There will no longer be a Plan 2. There will no longer be a Plan 5 for new students. The existing Plan 5 will remain. for those cohort that start in Plan 5. All funding will come through what's known as lifelong learning entitlement. A single pot of money equivalent to 4 years tuition fees today, £37,000. ELQ rules out the window. Previous study out the window, which currently affects students who go to university, they're mature applicants and had a year of tuition fee or 2 years of tuition fee. The way that the LLE will work is a single pot of funding, £37,000 of tuition fee, to be used as you see fit for what you wish to study, whether it's a full linear 3-year degree or 4-year degree, whether you wish to do higher technical qualifications in university, all level 4 and 6 courses will move across the LLE funding. You can do your traditional BA honours and BSc honours and integrated masters, foundation degrees. Yes, absolutely not a problem. The idea behind LLE is that somebody should be able to start and stop their journey of education at time to suit them. Flexible, modular learning, modularization of all courses. Yeah. Of course.
Will that enable students that have maybe, I don't know, done a year of higher education, 2 years, at this point in time, to benefit from that?
It's very hard to answer that question right now because we're still waiting finalization of what this will look like when it's 20 rolled out to 25. But if a student is currently at university, are you referring that they're currently at or they're right?
That 2 years, presumably that £18,000 worth of
Correct.
could she come in, get the remainder of that pot?
Right. So how that will work is based on residual income. So if they've had 2 years of higher education funding, I'm going to assume that looking at their student account, the harm comment on cases generally, because we know what the history behind the case, is that if they've had an exit certification, certificate of higher education, or higher certificate of diploma in higher education, I have 2 years of study in university, often university will award an exit qualification if they've just not completed the full 3 or 4 years, which means that they've drawn out 2 years of 9 or 250. So that's £18,500 already. When they open an account, when LLE is launched in 25-26, everyone that's previously accessed student funding will move on to what's known as a personal account, even mine will. I don't just do my loan repayments. And the personal account, when you enter your personal details, will bring out your history of what you've already had, and then minus it from the residual, what your residual income is to what that is. So in theory, somebody could still have £18,500 sitting around to use for what they want to use. Yeah. You're welcome. So this is a major shake-up of higher education funding as we have ever known it for the last maybe 29, 30 years. Everything is moved. Yes, go for it. That's right.
It's obviously the equivalent of 4 years.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Is the maximum amount of years at the minute that students can study is 4 that they'll get loans for?
Currently, it works out. It's interesting, and it's a good question. It's what we class as ordinary duration plus 1. So if you do a medicine degree, we fund the first 4 years, then that means classic NHS bursary from year 5, etc. If you do integrated masters, it's 4 plus 1, so that's 5 years. If you do a foundation year, part of your ultimate degree, and then do an integrated masters, that's 5 plus 1. So the calculation for entitlement to public purse money at the moment is ordinary duration, so what's the course duration, plus your 1 gift, not the word gift year, or 1 extra year if you have to CPR or repeat study, etc. Under this, there will be an allowance for specialist subject areas, SSAs is what they're going to be known as, medicine, dentistry, potentially teaching, NHS, that fall out of, because the way the LLE is likely to work is that all courses and all modules will have to be credit bearing. So there will be a value added to the modularization with a minimum of 30 modules that somebody can study at university or higher education college level. There will be special subject areas that will be exempt from credit value because of the nature of how they're taught. So medicine will be exempt, dentistry will be exempt. Any courses that are beyond the 4 years or what we call the ordinary duration plus 1, there will be additional funding for that. This is how it will look. So all level 4 to 6 courses from 25-26, with additional rollout of modularization in 26-27, because some institutions, higher education colleges, are applying to the OPES for accreditation and registration to be able to run qualifications that are approved by IFA, the Institute for Apprenticeship and Technical Education. And then in 27, 28, the full rollout of LLE, i.e. all funding, all courses, modularization or not, will sit under LLE in 27, 28. From 26, 27, the only course in 25, 26, and 26, 27 that will be able to draw down the old advanced learning loans, I'm going to deal with advanced learning loan, yeah, is access to higher education goals since that's it. Because the pathway to university and it gets written off if you go on and complete your higher education. Everything else that is currently taught at FE colleges that falls under CPD is moved to LLE. You can't draw down debt level for it at all. So, yeah.
And can you have entitlement to that money even if you're still working? So you could do a modular course, say at the Open University.
Of course.
Okay.
Hence why the whole idea of lifelong learning entitlement. So yes, it sits involved with anybody who wants to do CPD. If they're currently working, they can study on a part-time basis, full-time. Yeah.
So could you version where someone uses the advanced learning, this instead of advanced learning loan to pay for FE after 19, but no.
This will only be for higher education.
Okay, right.
It's what known as ADQs, automatically designated courses.
Okay.
So they have to be for LLE funded. So you can't use it for a course that's not designated under LLE funding. That hence why the office registration process that's taking place at the moment. Yeah.
Why does it end at 60?
I'm with you. I'm totally with you.
Because it seems a bit of a curious.
It's ages.
Yeah. Considering people come to work till
67,
yeah.
70, 80.
So, and the other question is it not based on whether or not you've got a degree already? You can't do. It's not. You can do a second degree if you have one.
As long as you've got residual income left. But obviously the exception rules still apply. So for instance, I already have a degree, I've used it on funding. But if I watch 100 events tonight, and somebody's wife or qualified to be a midwife, I can go and get a second round of NHS funding. That's the exception list of courses. NHS, our health professional programs and part-time medicine and student health and science as well. But under this, if somebody's used 3 years of funding, maybe 15 years ago when the tuition fee was £6,000 or £3,000, multiplied by 3, minus that from your 37, that's your residual income. So if you want to do a degree, because they're going to have credit values, remember. So some degrees will have high credit value, some will have a lower credit value. Those that have a lower credit value, if you work out that you can study a 2-year fast track degree and you've got the balance of money to do it, you do it through this. There will be a maintenance loan applying to this as well, but we're still currently working with the DFE. You're full of questions. This is undergrad. Postgrad is a separate product and it still sits there as a separate product. This won't impact your entitlement to postgrad money or PhD. This is purely undergrad money. Yeah. So there is work being done to look at how maintenance loans work, because obviously currently somebody goes to university for 3 years in the first year. I've just shown you how it works. You're entitled to this much. But if somebody goes to university in 25, 26 and says, well, I don't, in theory, I don't enroll for a 3-year degree. I enroll for 120 credits, which is only the first year degree, or worse still, I enroll for 60 credits. And then I'll make a high later on and finish that degree, with pro rata what the maintenance loan entitlement will be based on 60 credits in credit value and time they spent to complete 60 credits at university. You can imagine our life right now in SLC trying to work out systems of how we're going to make these payments. But even worse, I would imagine for universities to take a bigger headache right now in terms of understanding course structure, set up that along writing your prospectuses for 25, 26, because everything's got to be modularized. Good luck on that one. So yeah, there are lots of enhancements and changes coming about. I put this on there on purpose for you. Please, please, please attend. SLC has been asked to do a lifelong learning entitlement roadshow up and down the country in 9 different cities. Now, when this LLE was launched in April last year, we were told that the DFE would do a roadshow and that they would support anything that we would do. That is now not happening. It's only SLC that are doing the roadshow, us. And my colleague from London, Ben, and myself are going to be the project leads on this up and down the country, traveling like a yo-yo to all these different cities, doing the IAG, and that's the important thing here. LLE's out there, there is information on the website, there isn't enough out there right now to understand the articulation of IAG around this for your year 11, year 12, how it's going to affect them. So what we are going to do from the 14th of May, and I will be in London on the 14th of May, I'll be going down 9 to 30, just to look at the courage. Look at the courage. Attend. It should be a free event when you get this. If you need further information on it, you can get in touch with me. My contact details will be at the end of these slides. And I can send you the registration details for when you can get further information timings. But I would certainly put these dates in your calendar, because the biggest shake-up of higher education funding to ever take place, and it's never been seen before. I would say that if I was sat there like I was many years ago as a Chris Eisen, I would turn up to one of these roadshows to understand better what I need to take away from this, be able to then discuss that with my learners, work closely with the parents and the caregivers, and I need to understand how LD is going to work. And the roadshow will be specifically IAG based. What is the articulation of IAG? How will we break this down to granular levels of understanding the funding, the modularization, how it will work? So on one hand, we're looking forward to it. On the other hand, we're absolutely not looking forward to it, because I imagine more questions coming out from this than there are going to be answers over time. The dates are actually fixed. So the dates are next, the timings that we're trying to establish as to when they're going to be, because obviously you need to know whether you spend a holiday with us, travel arrangements. There will be one in Birmingham, there will be one in Leicester on the 9th of July. So if you're local to Leicester, it's going to be on your doorstep. If you're in Birmingham, it will be in Birmingham. If you're in London or anywhere, other cities that are if you know, I will give you my email at the end of it. Some of you already have it. Sign up to it. The events page is there. You can request further information. The timings are still based on those. Obviously, you need to know like 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours planning your train travel, driving, etc. All of that. And if you haven't had enough of me by today, you'll see me at each one of the cities afterwards as well on stage talking, if I'm still standing. But yeah, this will be
a tour and take that.
Sorry?
You've got a little bit tour and take that.
Yeah, no, tell me about it. Yeah, I knew I'd been doing something wrong with SLC. Right, so I'm going to give you the cherry on the top now, and you'll probably be glad he'll be like, oh, right, he's shutting up, making fun of people quiet. Alternative student finance have been approved by the government. What is alternative student finance? It is Sharia compliant finance that's been talked about for 24 years by the government, by introducing a product dedicated to the Muslim demographic who have said that for years. They have felt they can't go to university in plan 1, plan 2, and currently plan 5 if you look into it, because of the attraction of interest that's applied, and it forbids them on faith reasons to be able to take any loan that has interest, and the moral challenges around that, and the ethical challenges around that. The government have now said that alternative student finance, as it will be known, not Sharia combined finance, will be launched in 2026. It's supposed to come out in 2025 with LE, but there's been a bit of a pushback on this, so it will be launched hopefully in 2026. What this means is that there will be another product alongside LE that will be introduced, where students can apply in the exact same way, PM1 online application. They will repay in exactly the same way, 9% above the threshold, whatever that threshold will be. The repayments will go into a ring-fenced, protected pot with the Department for Education, for that money to only be reinvested back for future students who wish to go to university. But here's the key thing. This money and this product is not just for the Muslim demographic. It's anyone that is eligible to apply for student finance. So there will be a side-by-side product, LLE, alternative student finance. Now you may ask, why the need for 2 products? LLE, Plan 5, alternative student finance. Well, we know Plan 5 is coming out. It's only going to be for people who are continuing on Plan 5. LLE will be in place in 25-26. Then 26-27 we introduce this product for the demographic that's been in consultation with the government, and we're currently in consultation with government. And I was in Scotland all this week. I got back home last night at 10 o'clock and I was struggling with violins. Right. So as of yesterday, I have officially been nominated and named as a project lead for this product by the SLC and DFE. So if you have any further questions on this, when you get my email, feel free to ask me this. If you have any requests from your colleges or your sixth forms for me to come in and talk on this, I'll be more than happy to do that. I'm more than happy to do. Do you want to just take over? I'm sorry.
So is it the same amount that they're paid, or are you committed to that?
I'll go into that, but that's a great question. It shows that you're thinking way ahead of I am. Okay, so the product will allow you to apply for your tuition fee, your maintenance loan, and any supplementary grants that you are qualifying for. When you repay, you're not paying an RPI inflationary value, or there is no interest applied. Now, we need to think about that very, very carefully, because Plan 5 as it currently exists, this is just me, my interpretations, other people will look at it slightly differently. The new Plan 5 is different from Plan 2 in that we removed the +3 or up to 3% interest in Plan 5. Plan 5 currently just has an RPI inflationary value marker, no interest. Did you hear what I just said? No interest. So Plan 5, Sharia compliant finance, no interest, Plan 5, no interest, but an RPI inflationary marker. RPI, retail price index, at the moment sits at, I can't find it, it's about 7%, but it's not interest. So if RPI drops to 3%, the value of your loan drops to 3%. If it goes to 5%, the value of your loan is 5%, but it's not interest approved. It's like buying a bottle of water or a bottle of Coke for £1.25 today, and the next year it's £1.65. It's not interest. It's the economic scales and value of that product that goes up or down. So it works in exactly the same way. Answer to your question: you apply for your tuition fee at a cap of 1950. If it's still 1950 in 26-27, you apply for your maintenance loan in the same way that you currently apply for your maintenance loan. When you come out of university in 3 years, and then you have your grace period, and you go into repayment, and the statutory repayment due date is the following April. You repay your money at 9% above its threshold, whatever that threshold is likely to be, but without any inflationary marker. So what you borrow is what you repay.
So, but you can borrow the same price, at the same amount.
The product is the same. The product is the same. The way it is repaid will be based on going to a pot of money that is ring-fenced, protected only for this product. It can't be invested in other areas of government investment. There's the problem. That's the problem that is currently under discussion with the DFE.
Then obviously financially, we're very well serviced to do that.
What happens to LLA? What happens to the products?
Why do they have, if they can have something like this, and why not give it to everyone? If you can afford to do that, surely there's.
Yep. So these are discussions, these are the questions. This is what I'm trying to get better understanding on at the moment. And as I said, as of yesterday, I am going to be that person that has to attend all these meetings and teams meetings and constantly up in Scotland. And no doubt there'll be a roadshow for this, and no doubt I'll have to do that for it as well. So yeah, let's wait and see what happens. But it is potentially 26, 27 that this is coming out. There might be a pushback. I don't yet know. This pushback is 27, 28. But 26, 27 is what we've been told as an absolute certainty. And then you'll be pleased to know I can now wrap it up. And I'm more than happy to take any further questions that you might have. Just not from moving over here. We've had a proposal already. Tim can go next. But yes, we have a lot of resources, and I put this resource in place for you, which is a map of the timeline of what we expect students to do and follow in terms of understanding student finance. It's not just about applying for student finance and getting your money. It's about understanding the relationship with student finance for the next 30 to 40 years. What you need to do in term 1, what you need to do in term 2, what you need to do when you graduate from out of university. And I always get asked the question, I get asked by friends who've got kids that have come out of university, when they go overseas, do they have to pay their student loan? Yes, they do. There is no getting away from a student loan until you're 6 foot under. That's that. 40 now. Right. So if students do ask you that question, what if I go overseas? Students under terms and conditions have to complete themselves an overseas income assessment form, which says I'm going overseas for more than 3 months. If you're just traveling, that's absolutely fine. But if you go overseas and you start to work, we need to know where you are and where you're working, because we have an agreement with every country around the world. And we have an agreement with Marshall Islands as well. There's one student in the Marshall Islands. One student who is in the Marshall Islands. What happens is that we've set your repayment threshold based on the index of standard of living for that country that you're in. So you pay us based on that threshold, based on what you're earning for that country, directly to SLC, and you can pay us either lump sum all year, divided by 12, we can do it in monthly payments. But if you tell us, if you don't tell us in the overseas and you start working for 3, 4, 5 years, you're in breach of your contract. We apply a higher rate of repayment and throw you into arrears. If you ever come back and say, well, PG loan, and then we look into your account and you breach your terms and conditions, we'll say, we're not giving you PG loan, you have to settle your arrears first.
Can I just add to that though?
Go for it.
My son went through this and he went out.
It wasn't my fault, I promise
I'm
you.
not blaming you, but what I hadn't appreciated at the time, and I do appreciate now, is that when he went out to Mozambique, he went out on a very, very low salary because he was a graduate and, but as far as that was concerned in Mozambique, that made him incredibly well off and he was on the higher interest rate. And that was shocking because he was only on 12 grand a year.
No, I can imagine. And there's other cases like that as well in Eastern Europe where people are on what we would deem a lower salary, but a fairly good salary out there. And you do have to start entering into repayment at that point. So please do have a look at these slides. You'll get there. As I said, there's information for everything I've spoken about today. I'm glad nobody's brought up the BBC article. If you want that question answered, I'm more than happy to answer that question for you. I can tell you categorically the average student repayment, and I refuse to use the word debt, is not £231,000 as BBC are indicating today. It's 44,690. Still a lot of money, but it's not 231. And just to tell you very quickly why the article of £231,000 was mentioned today, if you go down to the very bottom of the article, it is for a student that already went to university and did a 3 degree, then went to med school for 6 years, 9 years of taking out loans. And if you're a student that takes out 9 years of loans, you should know exactly how much you're taking out. It should not be a BBC story. That's my official opinion on that. So, but it's getting glamorous because we're into an election year. We're going to wait to see which political party picks up that article first and promises you the additional. And on that point, yes, sorry, we have a quick question. Yeah, it's going to be quick, isn't it? 17th of May.
And also, sorry.
Go for it. Go for it.
If they're unsure, so like having decided on whether they actually want to go to university,
Yes.
what would you suggest in terms of like?
My personal advice is you still apply. It's a free application. We don't charge you like UCAS does. If you don't go to university, but you've made a student finance application form, you have no money released to you because unless you start university, get an enrollment card, and you've been on the course for 3 days, we don't release your money to you.
Is that tuition fees as well as the maintenance?
Correct.
How do they?
Well, I was told by a uni that if they sign on the day to on the day they arrive, money is released. That
The way we release money to a university is 25%, 25%, and 50%. And 25% is not paid until all progression year.
okay, that's interesting. That's what they
Yeah.
How pay it, so if they,
Come to you, don't worry.
I'm sorry, this,
I'm going to start charging Morgan in a minute. Don't worry, and I'll pay off student loan too.
how do they do that? If they like advertisement?
The student.
Yeah, so how do they like, yeah, say I'm not going to university?
No, the application.
They're not going to get any money.
We still automatically delete the application to the university forms as that student is not, so that just triggers a no payment in it. Absolutely, yes, sorry.
Student loan.
Keeps people trapped, doesn't it?